Hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Play Pokemon SoulSilver. In the last part we reached Azalea Town and now it's time for the gym. Yo Challenger, Bugsy made this gym. It's a huge nest of bug-type Pokemon. Bugsy's young, but he's a master of bug types. It's gonna be tough without my advice. Let's see, bug-type Pokemon don't like fire. Flying moves are super effective too. Cool. And I genuinely can't remember at this point what Bugsy's gym looks like in the original game, but this time around it's that old Mario Party minigame. Choose your spider to stand on, and you'll get moved along at any intersection, you'll take the turn. It's basically the same gimmick from Bow Spider in Mega Man X1. Take the wrong turn, you get thrown into a fight, though you're required to do at least 2 no matter what. Additionally, there are also going to be levers in the latter half that you need to turn on and off to make certain paths inaccessible for the spiders, so you just need to kind of take a twist on it. It's not a very hard gym, I mean, it's only the second one after all, but I at least appreciate this game for taking the gyms that didn't really have a gimmick in Gen 2, because Gen 2's gimmicks were basically, here's trainers, fight them, same with Gen 1, and actually, make a gimmick out of it. But we do have some new bug-type Pokemon in here as well, namely Kakuna to start. Kakuna evolves from Weedle, I believe, at like level 7? Bug poison type, so it is weak to Flying, Rock, Fire, and Psychic. Kakuna can't do much, its main attack is Harden. It can also have any Poison Sting or attacking attacks that Caterpie can learn if done before evolving. It only really specializes in defense. The midlines for the bug types in Gen 1 and 2 are just there to literally be a mid-transformation thing and to be accurate to real-life biology. Because they're saving their techniques for the final evolution. Speaking of which, time for Beedrill. Still bug poison, so still weak to Flying, Rock, Fire, and Psychic. Beedrill heavily specializes in an attack, special defense, and speed stat, which isn't bad for the early game, considering this evolves from Kakuna at level 12, I think? Level 10, even. So for early game, this can be a really good, fast Pokemon to get, but by mid-game, its stats really make it kind of fall apart in my eyes, plus those particular types it's weak to become pretty common towards mid-game and beyond. So, good for early on, not so much for later on. Same with its cousin over in the Caterpie line, unfortunately. So, last time we helped Kurt with the Slowpokes, and we got the ability to use him to turn Apricorns into Pokeballs. So let's talk about the ones he can make. I already named what all of them were and what Apricorns they are made from last time, so let's start with the Heavy Ball. The Heavy Ball gains, or even loses, cat trait potential, depending on the weight of a Pokemon. If it's less than about 225.5 pounds, it has a negative catch rate. But up to 900-ish pounds plus, it gains upwards of, I believe, a 40%? Or is it a 4 times catch rate? I can't quite remember. Not too useful because not many Pokemon get that heavy outside of, like, very specific legendaries. And now it's time for a double battle with 2 entirely new Pokemon. First up there on the left is Ladybug. Bug flying type, so it is weak to Flying, Rock, Fire, Ice, and Electric, I think. I think Rock's a 4 times weakness there as well. Ladybug, for being a first phase Pokemon, has a pretty high special defense stat, I think. Which I believe it carries through to its evolution, but being a bug type prior to Gen 4 or even 5, well, 5 or even 4 more accurately, there's not a lot of use you can get out of it, I find. I'd say Gen 4 is where bug types started to get useful in terms of like the new bug types, and Gen 5 just took and started to run with it, even if they did have their own Gen 5 curses going on. Like, I'd say there's one bug they added in Gen 2 that's really useful, and we'll see them down the line. Otherwise, we also got Spinarak here. Bug poison type, so weak to Flying, Rock, Fire, and Psychic. It's got an okay attack stat, I guess. The rest of its stats are also pretty trashy. When it eventually evolves, when you catch one, because you can, I think you can start catching one starting from the next area on. It gets okay stats again, but again, bug types I find are better used in early to mid game, not so much late game. There's only a few bug types prior to Gen 5, I'd say, are worth using long term. Now, the next Pokeball that Kurt can make for you is the one from the Blue Apricorn, which is the Lure Ball. The Lure Ball gets upwards of a 3 times catch rate if you're catching a Pokemon while fishing. If you're not fishing, it's basically a negative catch rate. But if you're fishing and you use it, 3 times catch rate just about. Kind of useful for that, honestly, alone. That's one like the only 2 I'd say are overall useful to me. Even though I don't fish overall. Next Pokemon, though, is a Paris. Paris is bug grass type, meaning that it's weak to flying, poison, rock, bug, fire, and ice. I think flying and fire there are 4 times weaknesses. I used to not like this Pokemon too much because its stats aren't that good. I think it's got an okay attack stat, but nowadays this is a line I go to every now and then. Not for main combat, but between it and its evolution, it has a really good learn set for catching Pokemon because you can get a lot of different status ailments off of them. Paralysis, poison, sleep. If you're trying to catch a Pokemon, this can be a pretty good Pokemon to have around, honestly. Otherwise, combat, not too useful. My overall favorite part about Paris is probably the Pokedex lore that reveals it's more or less Pokemon's versions of Cordyceps, that mushroom, that fungus rather, that takes over dying bugs. The mushroom itself is the Pokemon, not the bug beneath it. At this point, though, I leave to go heal up, but along the way, the egg decides to hatch. Eggs have their whole different concept of hatching. There's even eggs that I believe hatch at different rates depending on the Pokemon. Bottom line, the one you get here in the plot always hatches into a Togepi. And, I can think of someone who's very egg-like in my life. Welcome to the team, Austin. Togepi is, I believe, a normal type still in this gen. It's a fairy type in Gen 6 beyond. It starts off with really good defense stats for a baby Pokemon, and as it evolves, it slowly gains a really good special attack stat from memory. So I could genuinely recommend using this Pokemon, especially here in Gen 4 beyond. And when it gains that fairy subtype down the line, or the main type rather, it gets even better. Ability-wise, it also has some interesting ones. It can either have Serene Grace, which boosts the probability of move additional effects going on, like hitting a Confusion off of using the Psychic move Confusion, or lowering stats if the move has the chance to lower stats. It can also have the ability Hustle, which boosts the attack stat for physical moves, but lowers the accuracy a little bit, which can be useful in its own right. Hey, Kyle, this is great news. A Pokemon hatched from that egg. I knew that giving that egg to you, Kyle, was the right thing to do. I just knew it. You should come here and show me what kind of Pokemon it is. We'll do that in a few moments, though, after the gym, because I don't want to hit that backtrack immediately, because we gotta go fight ourselves a gym leader still. So, let's go up here, save, and then prepare for Bugsy. If you brought a fire type along, you've probably already been doing pretty well with it, so just make sure you're ready.
I'm Bugsy. I never lose when it comes to bug-type Pokemon. My research is going to make me the authority on bug types. Let me demonstrate what I've learned from my studies.
Alright, starting off, Bugsy's first Pokemon is going to be a Scyther. This Scyther's got U-Turn, Quick Attack, Leer, and Focus Energy, so it can up its critical hits and try to go in with some really quick ones. And plus it has the ability Technician, which boosts the power of moves below, I think, 60 power by 50%. The big strategy for Bugsy is that he's going to make his Scyther use U-Turn and swap out to either his Metapod, which has Shed Skin and Tackle, or his Kakuna, which has Shed Skin and Poison Sting. He's trying to do essentially an early game Skull in a way. Scyther overall, though, is a Pokemon bug flying type, so it is weak to flying, rock, fire, electric, and ice. Rock is a 4 times weakness. Scyther's the only bug type I would consider using consistently out of Gen 1 throughout the entire game, even if you can only get it pretty late. And Gen 2 is even more so with that, because it's got a really good attack stat and really good speed stat as well, and Gen 2's evolution that it added got only better in that regard. The biggest problem with the evolution, as we'll see down the line, is potentially its typing. I'm also remembering this is the first time we've seen a Metapod, isn't it? Metapod is pure bug type, meaning it is weak precisely to flying, rock, and fire. It's a more HP-based Kakuna, essentially. And it's one that evolves into a better Pokemon because I just think Butterfree's better than Beedrill, straight up. Even if it's useful about as long, depending on your playstyle. Scyther loses a lot of threat in this fight once you take care of the Kakuna in Metapod if they decide to use U-turn a lot. Because the biggest thing you can do in that case is boost its crit rate and hope for a crit rate with, like, quick attack. Overall, if you chose Cyndaquil at the start of the game, this gym isn't going to be much of a problem. Not as much of a non-existent problem as Erica's gym was in Gen 1 or Fire Red Leaf Green if you chose the Fire Starter there, because you can have such a higher level curve by that point. But you shouldn't have much to worry about here. Especially if you remember to use the fire attacks and not quick attack. I will say though, from memory, I have some pretty rotten luck in this LP when it comes to item usage from gym leaders. And I've had a bit of an awakening to this recently. For some reason, I really remember growing up, gym leaders only using items towards the latter half of the game in any Pokemon game. But, sort of, I don't really like to talk about recent events too much in videos, but I've been streaming Emerald on my Twitch channel. And every gym leader so far has used items on me, starting with Roxanne, and I'm currently just past Norman. And I have never seen that happen before. Maybe it's because I'm usually quicker about taking things out in one shot, so I'm doing things just too differently this time around. I don't know what's going on. Even though it's my last Pokemon, bug Pokemon are tough. Later on they can be. Gen 1 and 2, barring the Scyther line, not so much. Well, I guess technically the Pinsir line. We'll talk more about that down the line when I believe we see one. But that Pokemon can also be, I guess, okay. But early game bug Pokemon, definitely not so much. Sorry, Bugsy. Also, the slight beauty about this, Poison Sting's not even that effective on me for double the reasons, because poison types can't be poisoned. Hang in there just a little more. I think I touched upon that like a video or two ago at this point. Certain types can't be hit by certain status ailments. Most namely, fire types can't be burned, ground types can't be paralyzed, poison types can't be poisoned. Same with steel types, but that's for a different reason. That's the end of it. Whoa, amazing! You're an expert on Pokemon. My research isn't complete yet. Okay, you win. Take this badge. 2 badges down, 6 to go. Do you know the benefits of the Hive badge? If you have it, Pokemon up to level 30 will obey you, even traded ones. Pokemon that know Cut will be able to use it outside of battle, too. Here, I also want you to have this. TM89 contains U-turn. It lets your Pokemon attack, then switch to the next Pokemon in your party. Isn't that great? I don't use those types of moves so much, but switching moves can be surprisingly effective in long-term combat. Especially if you're up against a Pokemon you know that you're type disadvantaged against otherwise. The big problem is it requires either a lot of planning ahead for choosing what Pokemon goes where, or knowing competitive. Kyle, I thought the egg hatched. Where's the Pokemon? I'd love to take a look at the Pokemon that hatched from that egg, Kyle. Right. Forgot you have to have the egg in the first Pokemon slot. Either way, yeah, let's show him the Togepi. What? That Pokemon? As far as I know, there's not a Pokemon like this in Johto. Just like Mr. Pokemon was saying over the phone. The legendary Pokemon could be... Oh, never mind. Anyway, I'm sure things will be happening around you, Kyle. You're making me all excited. I'll give you a present for that. Please take it. This is an Everstone. I don't like to use this. That's an Everstone. A Pokemon changes its shape as it evolves. But if it's holding an Everstone, you can prevent it from evolving. If you like the way a Pokemon is now, have it hold an Everstone. Kyle, good luck with your journey. Oh, one more thing. Don't forget about my research. I personally don't use the Everstone much ever. I can see why people would if they want to just not press B every time the level up thing happens, or if you're trying to learn certain moves, but for me, not much point. Hi there. Tell me something. Is it true that Team Rocket's returned? What? You beat them? Ha! Quit lying. Are you serious? Then let's see how good you are. Silver returns for match 2 of potentially too many, depending on the type of person you are. But he's gotten more Pokemon this time around. Starting off, he's got his own Ghastly, like our own Poison Ghost type, so weak to Ghost, Dark, and Psychic. Lick, Spite, Mean Look, and Curse also has the Levitate ability to get rid of the ground weakness. Curse is an interesting move in that its effect depends on whether or not the user is ghost type or not. If they're not ghost type, it just lowers the speed of the user by 1 stage and then ups the attack and defense by 1 stage each. If they're ghost type though, they sacrifice half their maximum HP, so you can knock yourself out with this, but then post a semi-permanent HP loss debuff on the opponent until they are switched out, I believe. And it's a pretty big loss of HP. I think it's like 25%, somewhere abouts there. It's good to keep around as a sacrifice play if you're running low on the user's HP. I believe I keep that on my own party for a while once I get it. Next up, we got his Crocodile. His Totodile has evolved. This happens at level 16, I believe. Still has Torrent for its ability, Water Gun, Rage, Bite, and Scary Face. Crocodile is where the Totodile line's higher physical attack stat can really start to shine if you chose one at the start of the game. Scary Face, I think, just lowers opponent's speed. That can honestly be pretty devastating against it because Crocodile's biggest weakness as a Pokemon is that it's, I think, the slowest out of the 3 starters. And because of that, it's very easy to just get yourself into a situation where you're just not getting a turn in. With that said, there are moves that can take advantage of that down the road that are stronger if you go second. So, again, if you chose Totodile, you still got some good options out ahead of you. And Silver's final Pokemon is his own Zubat. I kind of feel like he's copying us a little bit here. Inner Focus, Leech Life, Supersonic, Astonishing Bite. It's meant to do status ailments on you and then try to make you flinch. But since it's a Zubat, it's pretty easy to knock out pretty quickly. Say, you've got a lot of nerve coming here. You came up to me! I was just minding my own business, dude. You're the rude one here. Either way, going back to the Pokeballs that you can get from Kurt, the green apricorns give you the Friend Ball, which is my least favorite out of the set by and large. It's got a catch rate of 1 no matter what, so it's the equivalent of a Pokeball. But if it catches the Pokemon, it automatically more or less maxes out the Pokemon's friendship stat, which is something I haven't talked about yet. Pokemon have their own behind-the-scenes friendship stat. The more you use them, the more you use items on them. If they faint, they lose it a little bit. If you walk around with them in your party, it gains up a bit. Especially if they're the walking Pokemon behind you, it goes up at a bit of a higher rate. Some Pokemon's moves depend on the friendship stat. Some Pokemon evolve if they have a high friendship stat. This is only really useful as a Pokeball if you're going for one of those specific things. That's ridiculous. There's no way I can lose to a wimp like you. Well, you did before, so it's about to happen again. I'm sorry, guy. Nightshade also, by the way, on Mortis right now is a really good move. It does damage equal to their level. So in early game, this can be really good just as a move. Useless Pokemon. Listen, you. You won only because my Pokemon were weak. Are you sure it's just the fact that I have a better setup team? I hate the weak. Pokemon, trainers, it doesn't matter who or what. I hate to see them hanging around. That goes for Team Rocket, too. They think they're big and tough as long as they're in a group. But get them alone and they're weak. I hate them all. You stay out of my way. You won't be an exception if you get in my way. Okay, bye. Let's make sure to follow him, though, because really there's only the one route to take. And this brings us into our next mini-dungeon. This is Ilex Forest coming up here. The one thing I want to note, I love the little pre-dungeon stills you get in this game. I believe that's something they started doing in Gen 3. And they have separate versions depending on the time of day you get to the dungeons in this. And they all look so good. Oh, man, my boss is going to be angry. The Farfetch'd that cuts trees for charcoal took off into the forest. Can you catch them for me? Farfetch'd have sensitive ears. If you step on a branch, they'll face toward you. That's your chance. Sneak up from behind and catch them. Do you think you could do that? So they upgraded this section a little bit for Heart Gold, Soul Silver. In the original game from memory, you're just chasing them down and trying to corner them into a specific area. Here in the remake, you actually have to use sound to ambush them. But first we got the only new Pokemon we can find normally in this area. This is Oddish. Grass poison type, so it's weak to flying, fire, psychic, and ice. For being a first phase Pokemon, it's got some pretty good special stats that stay them focus as it evolves. And whether or not it specializes in special attack or special defense entirely depends on your choice of its third form, as the second evolution can evolve into... Or the first evolution can evolve into a different path depending on which stone you use on it. Personally, I prefer what happens if you use a leaf stone on it, but the sunstone variant's okay as well. But yeah, step on a branch, Farfetch'd faces you. Now we actively have to get behind it to catch it. If you try to come in from the sides, it'll just run away. Also, encounter rate in this area, a little ridiculous. You snuck up and caught it from behind before it noticed you. Wow, you found a Farfetch'd, thank you. But there's one more missing. If you step on a branch, it'll face that way, remember? That's your chance to catch it. Sneak up on it slowly from behind. You don't need to sneak up slowly, by the way. I believe you can just run into it as long as you are behind it. And while the first one is pretty straightforward, the second Farfetch'd is a noticeable up and complication to get, because you need to actively have it notice you first to get it into a corner. The problem is doing that can take a moment of thinking. And the problem with thinking in Pokemon puzzles is because of random battles, your train of thought might be completely interrupted. That is where the argument for using repels definitely wins out over my just get all the chip experience and build it up over time kind of mentality. Wow, you got me both of them. Thank you so much. My boss's Pokemon won't obey me because I don't have a badge. You saved me. Hello there. Ah, my far and fetched. You found them for us, kid. Without them, we wouldn't be able to cut trees for charcoal. Thanks, kid. Now, how can I thank you? Ah, I know. Here, take this. And we get HMO1. That's the HM cut. Teach that to a Pokemon to clear small trees. Of course, you have to have the gym badge from Azalea to use it. This is why I still have Scott in my party this distance in, because frankly, I don't want to teach cut to any of my main Pokemon, because while there's still plenty of trees for us to cut through in the game, I don't want to have it on a team member that's going to be in there throughout the entirety. And this is also the first HM you can really take advantage of in the game, unless you got Rocky, I guess. Because Rock Smash is ultimately optional for a long time in the game, if not the entire game. Cut's mandatory, and this is where HM purpose really comes into play. They're permanent TMs because you need them to get through areas. Ilex Forest Shrine. It's a tribute to the forest's protector. I'm sure that's unimportant. But yeah, by and large, Ilex Forest, most Pokemon here you've seen before. And this is where they also highlight the fact there's a lot of hidden items just hidden at the end of some of these small tunnels. So now let's move on to the next Pokeball you can make with Kurt. The next one's the Love Ball, which is made from the pink apricorn. That one is more effective against Pokemon of the same type, but opposite gender of the one you have out in battle. So say you have a male Cyndaquil, it would be more effective against a female Cyndaquil. And it's a very effective effectiveness. It's 8 times the catch rate, but that's very situational. Bro, what are you doing? What am I doing? I'm shaking trees using Headbutt. It's fun. Here, you try it with your Pokemon too. So this guy teaches you the move Headbutt infinitely. Headbutt is a strong physical move for this point in the game, and it has the added effect of being sort of an HM. You can use it on any trees you see around us, including any route that has these trees otherwise, to potentially knock down Pokemon. There's a lot that goes into the mechanics of that I'll talk about in a moment. Kimono girl, lost and all alone. Poor girl lost in the dark Ilex Forest. What? You remember me from Violet City? You must be imagining. Anyway, will you show me how to get out of this forest? Sure. You will? Aren't you lost in the forest as well? How do you know how to get out of here? Well, why not leave it to the Pokemon who can use echolocation? Wow, are you going to show me how to get out? You're such a smart Pokemon. See you. Well, that was weird. But yeah, Headbutt, every route by and large has a selection of 2 different indexes of Pokemon that can fall out of trees. and it chooses 2 trees in every area by random, I think when you load up the save, more or less. So the same trees will always drop Pokemon, and you can get some rare Pokemon out of this. For instance, you can find the Pokemon Pineco, I think, only by doing that. Same with Heracross back in Route 33, just east of Azalea Town. It's worth looking into the tables of it, because I don't do it myself throughout this LP, because there are some Pokemon you can only find by that. The problem is figuring out which trees are the ones that'll actually drop the Pokemon. That's why I tend to not do it. But for now, it's time for us to get into a Pokemon battle that has a completely new Pokemon for us. By the way, speed up theme for this part is the Mega Man Star Force 2 main battle theme. Time for us to talk about Sandshrew. I love this thing. Pure ground type, so it is weak against water, grass, and ice. Sandshrews got some pretty okay physical stats for a first form Pokemon, but when it evolves in its relative early 20s level, it really gains in those physical stats and even becomes a pretty good HP sponge for what the stats are. I have used this Pokemon a lot over the years. I recommend it a lot. Pity its Alolan form's typing's a little unfortunate, but we'll talk more about that when we eventually reach Gen 7. But yeah, let's look at the list of Pokemon you can find here in Route 34. You can mostly find Rattata. If you like Psychic types, you can find Abra and Drowsy around here. Same with Dittos. But if you want to use, say, Headbutt to find Pokemon, you can find Executes, Pinecos, Hoots, Ladybuzz, and Spinaраx, depending on your version of the game. Ladybuzz in SoulSilver, Heart Gold's got the Spinaраx there. But you have to check every one of these trees. That is an admitted downgrade over the original game, because in the original game, only certain routes had headbutt trees, and they had a completely different sprite and were 1 tile big. So you could tell which trees could potentially have Pokemon. It's just a matter of whether or not you got the Pokemon you wanted. I'm going to try and mention when there's any kind of standouts in a route when it comes to headbutt tree Pokemon, but by and large, there are going to be a lot of things we've already seen at this point, usually a lot of bugs or flying types. For now, though, it's time to talk about our next Pokemon here. This is Snubbull, normal type in Gen 4, eventually becomes a fairy type down the line. So that means it is weak to fighting, immune to ghosts. Snubbull's got a pretty okay attack stat for Phase 1. When it eventually evolves, it gets, I believe, even more specialized in that attack stat. The problem for me with the Snubbull line has always been it doesn't have much in terms of defenses, and it's very slow. If I want my Pokemon to be slow, I'm gonna try and go for one that either has absurdly high attack stats in some form, or is absurdly tanky. Ones that are just kind of in the middle for that overall, not very much to my preference. Mind you, I have noticed over time, I definitely have a bias when it comes to the Pokemon I try to catch. Usually, I try to catch ones that have a stat of over 100 in one of their focus stats. If it's even in the 90s, I'm like, that's good, but it could be better. And that's probably just me trying to have roles be fulfilled in some form, like, here's the special user, here's the physical user, here's the fast one, things like that. Again, Pokemon is very much your mileage may vary in the teams you make, because, frankly, you're probably catching entirely different Pokemon that make for a completely different team setup that you enjoy. I feel in that regard, Pokemon's really nice for appreciating different playstyles. The only time I'll say someone's wrong is when they're using one of those Pokemon that's just complete trash. But even then, those Pokemon are still usually at least cute. Mother, stop spending my money, please. By the way, I should note, I do more or less cut out every single time I grab items that Mom bought for us in the game. So if I suddenly seem like I have a held item that you don't have from finding it in the game, go talk to the guy in the Pokemarts, it'll be there more than likely. For now, though, we got 2 new Pokemon. Starting off, we got Mankey. Pure fighting type, so this thing is weak against Flying, Psychic, and eventually Fairy down the line. Mankey's really fast and has a decently high attack stat, and that gets only better as it evolves. My problem with Mankey has always been is that it's a pure fighting type. Pure fighting types, I think, are better than a lot of other pure types, but there's just better things for me to use in my case usually. It's still good. I've used one a lot at the start of the games. And that there was Diglett, by the way, pure ground type. So that is weak against water, grass, and ice. Extraordinarily fast, despite its rest of its stats being middling. It was one of the fastest Pokemon in Gen 1, and I think it's still in the top 300 to date. I wouldn't say it's worth keeping around, even if its eventual evolution is even faster, and if memory serves, gets an okay attack stat. Grandpa! Hello again, Lyra. Been a little bit. Good work, Grandpa. The Pokemon you raised for me has been as healthy as can be. You look fit, too. Hi, Kyle. Let me introduce you. This is Kyle. He's a trainer. He seems to be getting better at raising Pokemon. Well, not as good as you, Grandpa, of course. Follow me, Kyle. Sure thing. Welcome to the daycare. Grandma! Let me introduce you to my friend. This is Kyle.
Aha, this is your boy, friend. I see.
What? Grandma, what are you talking about? He just happens to live nearby.
I know. Since you brought him here, Lyra, you must be sure about his talent. Right, Kyle? Come and see us anytime.
Well, I better go now. See ya. So the daycare is pretty important. Oh, I almost forgot. Here, this is my Pokegear number. Calling Lyra is interesting, but ultimately doesn't do much. You know how you can talk to your Pokemon as they follow you? They do all sorts of cute stuff on the road and in towns. I'm taking notes every time they do funny things. Give me a call and I'll share some of them with you. Grandma, don't you say anything. We're both trainers, and we're supposed to exchange numbers. That's all. Weird dialogue. But yeah, she will tell you what your Pokemon can do on certain routes if they are certain types. The daycare, though, you can drop off upwards of 2 Pokemon, and while they're here, they'll gain experience the longer you walk around. It does cost more to bring them back out afterwards, but it's ultimately good if you're looking to just level someone off screen. And plus, if you leave, say, 2 species that can breed, you can get an egg out of this, allowing you to get baby forms of Pokemon, transfer natures, transfer moves, all those sorts of stuff. For meta gaming stuff, it's very important, but for single player, doesn't really matter much unless you're looking for specific Pokemon in certain regards. But with that, I'm going to need to end this off here. Thank you guys for watching, and in part 6, we're heading to Johto's biggest town. See you guys then.